Hey guys, welcome back to The Readers. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is Pro-Revenge Story. Well, let's start a few years in the past. My great-grandparents planted an apple orchard back in 1903. It's now about 120 years old. My grandparents and parents took immense pride in these Honeycrisp apple trees and worked tirelessly to maintain their health. Every autumn, when the apples reached their peak ripeness, we hosted a massive harvest festival, inviting friends and neighbors from all around. Those celebrations were some of my favorite childhood memories. The neighbors living south of our orchard were particularly enthusiastic about our apples. They were wonderful elderly folks, and I formed a special bond with the old man Tyler. He was a master craftsman who taught me everything about traditional woodworking. No power tools allowed. We spent countless evenings in his workshop, sharing stories and sipping bourbon. "You see this hand plane?" he'd say, running his weathered hands over the smooth wood. "Been in my family for 3 generations. Tools like these tell stories, son." In exchange for his mentorship, we kept him well supplied with apples, homemade preserves, and our special apple brandy. Sadly, he passed away in 2013. Cancer's a cruel disease. His wife followed just months later, with many saying she simply lost her will to live after his death. They were childless, so their property went to the state, except for Tyler's tools and bourbon collection, which he'd gifted to me shortly before his death. "Take good care of these," he'd told me, his voice weak but determined. "They've got more stories to tell." Enter Rebecca, though everyone eventually called her Becky from Hell. The stereotypical entitled nightmare, designer clothes, luxury SUV, and an attitude that could curdle milk. She purchased Tyler's old property. We couldn't afford it ourselves, having faced some financial difficulties in previous years that depleted our savings. Before even moving in, she started making rounds to all the neighboring properties, issuing demands like she owned the whole county. When she finally graced us with her presence, she immediately demanded we remove half our trees, claiming the leaves were trespassing onto her property. "Those trees are a nuisance and a hazard," she declared, hands on her hips. "I want them gone within 30 days. I calmly explained, "These trees have been here for over a century. They're part of our family heritage and local history. I don't care if George Washington himself planted them," she snapped. "They're affecting my property value. There are some important details you should know." Tyler's workshop, situated right at our property line, was a historic timber-framed structure dating back to 1850. State regulations strictly protect buildings over 100 years old, requiring special permits for any modifications or demolition. Violations can result in substantial fines. New construction requires proper permits, neighbor approval, and must maintain specific property line setbacks for emergency access. Any violations can result in court-ordered demolition. Becky's harassment campaign intensified over time. She managed to get our neighbor's gentle giant schnauzer put down by falsifying an attack report. The truth came out later, but it was too late for poor Max. She systematically destroyed our annual Harvest Festival tradition by calling authorities with bogus complaints, noise violations, fire hazard reports, even allegations of illegal distilling, despite our valid permits. "This isn't over," she'd yell from her porch whenever we were outside. "Those trees are coming down one way or another." Strange incidents began occurring. Truck tires mysteriously getting slashed, eggs pelting our house at night, and our cat disappearing for days only to return with suspicious injuries. We suspected her but couldn't prove anything. Then came her fatal mistake. One weekend while we were away, she had contractors demolish Tyler's historic workshop. Within days, construction began on an elaborate pool house in its place. She'd overlooked one crucial detail. She never obtained our required approval as adjacent property owners. Soon after, our trees closest to her property started dying, leaves browning midsummer, branches withering. We lost 4 trees before discovering the cause, copper nails driven into their trunks. We installed trail cameras and caught her in the act. "I can explain," she stammered when confronted. "Those trees were dropping branches on my new pool house. My father, ever the peacemaker, was willing to let it go. But seeing her drive that nail into our oldest tree, the one Tyler used to help us harvest every year, that was the last straw." Through some contacts in county administration, I discovered she'd never obtained permits for demolishing the workshop or building the pool house. Further investigation revealed her new structure actually encroached 3 feet onto our property. When I presented this evidence to my parents, they initially hesitated, worried about escalating tensions, but after reviewing her pattern of destruction, they agreed it was time to act. The dominoes fell quickly once we reported her. The workshop wasn't just protected by age. It had served as a stop on the Underground Railroad, making it a registered historical landmark. She was fined $150,000 for its destruction. The pool house had to come down, $50,000, earning another $83,000 in fines. She was required to rebuild the workshop to exact historical specifications using period-appropriate materials and methods, costing $154,000. "This is ridiculous," she protested at the hearing. "It was just an old shed." "That old shed was part of American history," the commissioner replied, "and you're going to restore it. The total hit, $437,000 plus legal fees." She declared bankruptcy and had to sell the property, which we purchased. Last I heard, she'd retreated back to the city, hopefully having learned an expensive lesson about respecting history and property rights. The next one is an entitled people story. I'm a 42-year-old Army veteran who served 3 tours in Afghanistan. My last tour ended with an IED that left me with a prosthetic right leg below the knee and a purple heart I didn't ask for. Adjusting to civilian life was tough, but I managed to build a decent life for myself. I work as an IT specialist for a local company, and while the phantom pain still bothers me sometimes, I've gotten pretty good at walking without much of a limp. I don't like using my disability placard unless I absolutely need to. Some days are better than others with my prosthetic, and I try to park in regular spots when I'm feeling good. But last winter we had this brutal cold snap that made my residual limb ache something fierce. Cold weather and prosthetics don't always play nice together. It was a Thursday afternoon when I pulled into the local grocery store. The temperature had dropped to about 15 degrees and my leg was killing me. I displayed my handicap placard clearly on my rearview mirror and parked in one of the designated spots near the entrance. I was only planning to grab a few things, some milk, bread, and ingredients for dinner that night. I was in the store for maybe 25 minutes. When I came out pushing my cart, my truck was gone. At first, I thought I was losing my mind. Had I parked somewhere else? But no, I was certain I'd parked in that handicap spot. That's when I noticed a business card on the ground where my vehicle had been. Valley Towing Company. My first thought was that my truck had been stolen and someone dropped a random card, but when I called the number, they confirmed they had my vehicle. According to them, I was illegally parked in a handicap spot without proper documentation. "That's impossible," I told the dispatcher. "I have a valid placard and it was displayed on my mirror." "Sir, our driver reported no placard was visible. You'll need to come retrieve your vehicle. The fee is $275 for the tow, plus $50 per day for storage." I was furious. I had to call an Uber to take me to the towing company's lot, which was clear on the other side of town. The whole ride over, I was seething. When I finally arrived, a woman with a bleach blonde bob and an attitude that screamed, "I want to speak to your manager," was working the front desk. Her nameplate read Deborah K., but she might as well have had Karen tattooed on her forehead. "I'm here to get my truck," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "It was wrongfully towed from the handicap spot at Wilson's Grocery." She didn't even look up from her computer. "ID and payment first. That'll be $325. I had a handicap placard clearly displayed, I explained, pulling out my wallet to show her my placard permit card. "Your driver made a mistake." She finally looked up, her eyes giving me a once-over. "You don't look disabled to me." Those 6 words made my blood boil. I took a deep breath. "Not all disabilities are visible, ma'am, but if you must know..." I rolled up my right pant leg to reveal my prosthetic. For a split second, I saw uncertainty flash across her face, but she quickly doubled down. "Well, our driver didn't see any placard. Once a vehicle is towed, the fee stands. Maybe next time make sure it's visible." "I want to see the photos your driver took before towing," I said. "Most towing companies take pictures to document the violation before towing." "We don't have to show you anything," she snapped. "Pay the fee or you're not getting your truck back." I didn't have much choice at that moment. I needed my truck, and arguing with this woman wasn't getting me anywhere. I paid the fee, but before I left, I took pictures of the receipt, her nameplate, and the company information. I also asked for a copy of their towing policy, which she reluctantly provided. When I got home, I started researching. Turns out, in our state, towing companies are required by law to document with photographs that a vehicle is illegally parked before towing it from a handicap spot. They're also required to file these reports with the local police department. The next morning, I went to the police station and filed a report about the wrongful tow. The officer I spoke with was helpful, especially after I mentioned I was a disabled veteran. He pulled up the records and confirmed what I suspected. There were no photos submitted by Valley Towing for my vehicle. "This isn't the first complaint we've had about them," the officer told me. "They've been on our radar for predatory towing practices." He helped me file a formal complaint and suggested I also contact the Department of Transportation, which licenses towing companies, and the Attorney General's Consumer Protection Division. But I didn't stop there. I contacted a lawyer who specialized in disability rights, and he agreed to take my case on contingency. According to him, this was a clear violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. The towing company had discriminated against me based on my disability. In the meantime, I decided to share my experience on social media. I posted about what happened on Facebook, including details about the company and the woman who had treated me so dismissively. I made sure to include that I was a combat veteran who lost my leg serving our country. The post exploded. Within 24 hours, it had been shared over 5,000 times. Local veterans groups picked it up and started calling for a boycott of Valley Towing. A local news station contacted me for an interview, which I did from my living room, showing them my prosthetic and my properly displayed handicap placard. The story ran on the evening news, and by the next day, Valley Towing was in full damage control mode. They issued a statement claiming it was all a misunderstanding and offered to refund my money. But the internet wasn't satisfied. People began leaving one-star reviews on their Google and Yelp pages, sharing my story and adding their own negative experiences with the company. 3 days after my original post, I received a call from the owner of Valley Towing. He was practically begging for mercy. "Mr. Johnson, I want to personally apologize for what happened," he said. "I've reviewed the incident, and you're right. Proper procedures weren't followed. Deborah has been terminated, and we're implementing new training procedures for all our drivers." He offered not just a refund, but an additional $1,000 as a gesture of goodwill. I told him I appreciated the offer, but that my lawyer would be in touch about a formal settlement. The legal process took a few months, but the outcome was worth it. Valley Towing settled for $25,000, agreed to implement new disability awareness training for all employees, and made a donation to a veterans organization that helps disabled vets. They also had to post a public apology on their website and social media accounts. As for Deborah, I later heard through the grapevine that she couldn't find another job in the industry. Apparently, when potential employers Googled her name, the story of the Karen who towed a disabled vet popped right up. She eventually had to move to another town to escape the reputation she'd earned. The whole experience taught me the power of standing up for yourself and the power of social media to hold people accountable. I've since become an advocate for disability rights in my community, working with local businesses to ensure they understand and comply with accessibility laws. Sometimes I think about Deborah and wonder if she learned anything from the experience. I hope she did. I hope she realized that not all disabilities are visible and that making snap judgments about people can have serious consequences. As for me, I still use my handicap placard only when necessary. But now, I also keep a small dash cam in my truck that records 24/7, just in case another Karen decides to mess with the wrong disabled vet. The next one is an entitled people story. I originally posted about this a while back, but my original post was more of a lengthy rant, and I was a little too emotional at the time, plus the original title was misleading, as I meant to say stepmother and not mother. That said, this time I'm going to try again to better articulate myself, so here's the full story. For those who read my first post, this will also serve as the update, and sorry in advance for being long. Also, trigger warning, as there is violence mentioned in this story. I, F30, am a single mom to a mixed-race 3-year-old daughter. I'm white, but my daughter's father is a New Zealand Maori, the indigenous people of New Zealand. I have a close friend from college who I will call Kate, who really is a cool and genuinely nice person, but her stepmom Pam and stepbrother Kyle are toxic, entitled people. Pam is unemployed, used to work at an Amazon warehouse, but is now living on disability. Kate's dad, who I will call Kenny, works as a truck driver, and Kyle is also unemployed. As to my understanding, he's never been able to hold a job for long. Also, while Kate and her family are originally from West Virginia, they moved to Pennsylvania about some time ago. On July last year, I held an engagement party for my friend Kate and her fiancé Jack at my family's vacation home in the Catskills, as they were supposed to get married in December last year. Up until then, I didn't really talk to Kate's stepmom or stepbrother. I don't know them, but apparently they've been following me, my family and friends on Instagram and Facebook. According to Kate, Pam is apparently envious of the photos and stories me and our friends, post of us traveling, going out to restaurants, photos of us at parties or networking events, going on family boating trips, etc. For this reason, Pam was demanding that she and her son be invited to the engagement party so she could socialize with our friends, my family, as well as colleagues from the museum and university, as Pam and Kyle had no social life or friends of their own. Kate and I relented and allowed them to come as we didn't want them hassling Kate about this later on. Also, a little more background about Kyle. Kate did also go on to talk about how Pam pretty much coddled Kyle, that he was homeschooled sometime during grade school as Pam didn't like the fact the school disciplined him for bullying and other antisocial behavior, that Pam got mad at the school when they raised concerns that Kyle may have mental health issues and sexist beliefs, that he was never told off by Pam but rather enabled by her, and Pam wouldn't let Kenny discipline Kyle for anything he did, but apparently Pam could discipline Kate for the most minor infractions. That said, Kyle grew up coming to expect to be given anything and everything he wants, as well as never having had to face any real consequences for his actions. For this reason, Kyle has no real friends, has no social skills, and no respect for personal boundaries. At the party, as mentioned in my previous post, Kyle and Pam seemed out of place. Pam kept trying to talk up Kyle to my female friends at the party. Kyle just seemed awkward or uncomfortable the whole time, and they couldn't hold conversations with the other guests. During later Kyle started flirting with me, I initially tried to be polite, keeping my answers to his questions short, but after Kyle called my daughter a half-breed, saying that I should get rid of her so I could go out with him, I felt so disgusted and angry with him that I snapped, shouting at him and his mom to get out of my family's house. Pam got mad at me, accusing me of disrespecting her son, which I don't deny, demanding I apologize to her son, Pam screaming at the other guests who were now also chastising them, Pam and Kyle, etc. I in turn called Pam and Kyle out for being racist, classless misogynists, with the two of them leaving after realizing that nobody was supporting them and Rachel calling being on the phone with the sheriff's office. Pam and Kyle then started sending me and Kate messages, angrily expressing how they felt humiliated. Pam calling me and my guests, most of whom were friends and colleagues from the museum and university, were snobs, as she felt we thought that we were too good for them. Pam demanding I apologize to them, Pam and Kyle demanding I go out on a date with Kyle to give him a chance, and other things. I ended up just blocking Pam, but neglected to also block Kyle. Fast forward to late March, ICE came over to our family's home in the Upper East Side since apparently Pam and Kyle reported my daughter as an illegal immigrant, despite my daughter being a U.S. citizen, born in Boston, and me being her mother. I then called my grandpa's law firm, who sent over a couple of lawyers. The lawyers dealt with the ICE agents while I showed documents, etc. Anyway, Kate told me that Pam and Kyle tried to get my daughter deported because they didn't want a non-white person in their family. Pam wanted me to get with her son, and they hoped that this would somehow make me willing to go out with Kyle. Instead, my family and I decided we were going to take them to court. Our lawyers reported Pam and Kyle to the Inspector General's office for their fraudulent report. Note, from what I understood, by filing a fraudulent report to ICE, Pam and Kyle would be a federal offense under 18 U.S.C. SEC 1001. But as to whether DHS pursues them is up to them. If DHS investigates Pam and Kyle, that would be separate from our family's case against them. Kate and her fiancé Jack did initially plan to go NC with Pam and Kyle, but that proved to be impossible as Kate and her dad are trying to mend their relationship. Kenny was away from home a lot due to being on the road, and even when he was at home, he didn't want to get involved with what he called family drama, and just told Kate to do whatever Pam demanded of her in order to keep the peace in their family. This did cause a long strain in her relationship with her dad, but he's now genuinely trying to mend his relationship with Kate, trying to set boundaries with Pam, but that said, it would be nearly impossible for Kate to go NC with Pam or Kyle without also going NC with her father. I understood Kate's situation and accepted her decision to only remain low contact with Pam and Kyle, as Kate did, also promised to not only not mention anything about me to Pam or Kyle, but also keep me informed on anything they may be doing. A few days after ICE's visit, Kyle contacted me again, this time from a different number, angry that my daughter wasn't deported, demanding I put her up for adoption or give her to her birth father, my ex, reiterating that they don't want a mixed kid in their family and that he wanted my daughter out of the picture before we could get together. Feeling too tired to deal with it, I just told Kyle that any communication between us and him or his mother would need to be done via our lawyers going forward before hanging up on him. From different numbers, Pam and Kyle then tried calling me multiple times again, leaving voice messages which frankly sound unhinged and incoherent, but boiled down to them demanding I talk to them, Pam saying I'm not being a good daughter-in-law, and other words to that effect. Kate then contacted me, warning me that Pam and Kyle are freaking out, Pam ranting that she can't afford to be taken to court again as she's living on welfare, Kyle is unemployed, Kyle being obsessed with me, and Pam wanting to give her son the perfect wife who would take care of them. Additionally, Kenny is frustrated and angry with Pam and Kyle's shenanigans, with Kenny telling them to just drop it and to leave me alone, but they're not listening to him. Our lawyers have been in contact with Pam's lawyer, Rob, who is also Pam's older brother, with Rob wanting to negotiate a settlement before things go to court. Because of this, our lawyers organized a meeting at my grandpa's LIC office. At the meeting, me, my dad, and the 2 lawyers assigned to me met with Rob, Pam, and Kyle. To his credit, Rob was courteous, professional, and does seem like a genuinely reasonable person. However, as our lawyers started discussing the settlement, Pam interjected, demanding that I drop the lawsuit, saying things along the lines of, "You're going to be my son's wife, so you better start acting like it." Her saying that I should be grateful that her son is into me, as not many guys are going for single moms like you. Keep in mind, Pam herself was a single mom before she married Kate's dad. Pam saying her son and I will give her a grandchild who, as she says, looks like us, and your immigrant daughter, Pam referring to my daughter, is not like us. With Pam then turning to my dad and saying, "Our families should be one, and we are like you." Rob sat there uncomfortably, clearly embarrassed and ashamed of her sister's behavior as he tried to get Pam to shut up. My dad then told them that we are nothing alike, we do not share their views, we do not share the same values, my daughter is his, my dad's granddaughter, and that we have nothing in common with them. My lawyer then reminded them that the point of this meeting was to discuss a settlement and that they're not exactly in any position to make demands. Pam, ignoring this, went on her rant, saying it was unfair that she spent the better half of her life working minimum wage jobs before going on disability, while my family wastes nice things like our family Christmas parties, boat trips, vacations, and good schools on my immigrant daughter, as Pam called my child. Pam continued talking about how she and Kyle deserve these things more than my daughter does. Pam saying it's unfair that my family and I flaunt lives on social media but not invite Pam or her son to join us, despite us inviting Kate, who again is a close friend of mine, and that her kind of people, referring to my daughter again, have no place in her idea of America. Our lawyers then just asked Pam and Kyle, "If you're not here to discuss a settlement, then what exactly are you hoping to gain from this meeting?" Kyle then spoke up, saying that he demands that my family drop our lawsuit and that I give in to his demand to give my daughter away and agree to go out with him. In exchange, he says that he will allow me to keep on working, but that my money needs to go to him as he will control our finances, with Kyle saying, "I am going to be the man of the house, so you better start listening to what I tell you." I just replied saying, "What house? You live in an apartment with your mom." Kyle then got up and tried to walk towards me, but Rob had to hold him back as my dad and one of my lawyers got between me and Kyle. My other lawyer then left the conference room to call for security as Pam started screaming and shouting her own lawyer, brother Rob, for trying to hold back Kyle. A couple minutes later, security arrived and tried to escort Pam and Kyle out of the office. However, as they were doing this, Kyle then broke free and tried running back towards the conference room we were in, but was being held back by office staff. Kyle then got into a fistfight with the 2 security guards and some of the office staff who tried to restrain him, with Kyle finding himself in a corner, with his fists up, his face red and incoherently screaming at the security and staff surrounding him. Seeing this, I instructed the office receptionist to call 911. Seeing that the receptionist was on the phone, Pam then tried grabbing the phone from her as I held Pam back, with Pam shouting racist slurs at the receptionist. Realizing that the cops were on their way, Pam then grabbed Kyle as they ran towards the elevator, fleeing the building before the cops arrived. After they left and the police arrived, we gave our statements to the police. The injured security and office staff indicated that they wanted to press charges against Pam and Kyle. We then spoke with Rob, who did apologize to us for their actions, with him going on to say that he only agreed to take their case because they're family. We also moved to file a restraining order against Pam and Kyle, with all communication between to be done via our lawyers. Additionally, as a result of Kyle assaulting security and staff in my grandpa's firm, they decided to pursue their own case against Kyle and Pam as well. Even after the incident at the office, Kyle and Pam continued to send me and my dad messages from different phone numbers and fake Facebook accounts, with Pam accusing me of ruining their future, again demanding we drop the lawsuit, demanding that we somehow get the police off of Kyle's back. Pam accusing me of ruining Kyle's life, accusing my family of being selfish, Kyle threatening to put me in my place, etc. As per our lawyer's advice, we did not respond to their messages or engage with them, but rather just recorded them and forwarded it to our lawyers for documentation. In order to decompress from the stress caused by Pam and Kyle, I got some time off work and spent a week down in Mexico to just relax a little. After returning to the States, I held a dinner get-together with my friends at this restaurant in Park Avenue where Kate again apologized for all the trouble her stepmom and stepbrother have been putting me through, as I assured her that I don't blame her for any of this. Kate also let me know that she, her dad, and Rob have been urging Pam to just agree to a settlement as they can't afford a lengthier court battle, coupled with all the other debts and bills Pam and Kyle already have, and Kenny has been pretty much paying for all their legal bills, draining his savings. Last week, my lawyers met with Pam and Kyle's lawyer Rob again, who informed us that Pam and her husband/Kate's dad, Kenny, decided to just pay a settlement in order to end this case. Evidently, in addition to my case against Pam and Kyle, they're still dealing with the still separate lawsuit from my grandpa's firm. Kyle has decided to go into hiding as he knows we reported him to the police for what he did in the office. Pam and Kyle have other debts they haven't been paying, and Pam is now even more miserable than before. Because of this, Kenny decided he'd use the remainder of his savings to pay me a settlement, as they need to use whatever other loans and remaining family savings. They still have to pay their other debts and Pam's other legal bills. Kate has also repeatedly refused to help her stepmom or stepbrother, as she and her fiancé Jack have their own life, their own bills to pay, and are saving not only for their wedding later this year, but also to move to the West Coast by sometime next year. Also, just a side note, Kate and Jack were supposed to get married on December last year, but due to Jack's injury and their subsequent medical bills, it was postponed until September this year. Anyway,